the dial, turn it loud. Miami's pride, make us proud. CanesWear crew, you hear the crowd. Hurricanes ain't backing down. Every play, every score, raising bets and raising roar. Rocking orange, green galore. All for one and one for four. We got FTSN, taking names, winning again. Podcast fam, till the end. Tune in, now let's begin.
What is going on, Canes fans? It is Monday, the afternoon. Our Miami Hurricanes just got another big-time dub, 52-45 over the Louisville Cardinals this past weekend. And as you Cane fans know, it's Monday, start of the week, start of a big week, rivalry week. Miami Hurricanes versus FS2 Seminoles. Yes, the worst team in the state of Florida currently. That means FIU, FAU. Your favorite local Florida high school team currently right now is in a better spot than the FS2 Seminoles, who we will be facing this weekend at nighttime in the Rock. You guys know the deal. Hashtag Pack the Rock. Make sure you guys show up and show out for this Miami Hurricanes football program that's been showing out each and every week for us. But before we get started and we break down not only the Louisville game, but get into a little bit of the Florida State matchup and break down what's going to be happening this week on the CanesWear Daily Podcast Show, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I am your host, Brad Tejeda. This is the CanesWear Daily Podcast, only on FTSN. Like I said, folks, the Miami Hurricanes just had a big-time W in Kentucky against the Louisville Cardinals. Teddy Bridgewater retired his jersey. Homecoming for the Cardinals for the Schnellenberger Boots Trophy. And as you guys saw, this Miami Hurricane team just continues to show out in big-time moments for our Miami Hurricanes football program, whether it's Cam Ward, whether it's running back by committee, finally putting it all together, a big-time running game and running opportunity for a lot of these guys in the backfield. And then we saw with the wide receiver group, every single one of our big-time players in the wide receiver room got a touchdown. We'll be breaking down all the offense and all the defensive side of the football. But before we get into that, I do want to take a moment and kind of bring up something very special that happened right after our Miami Hurricanes got a big-time W against Louisville Cardinals. Let's take a look and watch this together. Man, you gotta love that, right? You got to love that. Joe Echeverria, new president of the Miami Hurricanes. If you guys don't know this guy, this man puts his blood, sweat, and tears into this program. You want to talk about being a fanatic, wanting not only the football program to succeed, but any aspect of sports or academics. Our new president, Joe, is one of the best guys suited for the job. And Mario even said recently, in an interview, I believe it was Joe Rose this morning, said that he would have never came to Miami if he didn't know that Joe Echeverria would have been a part of this program. So big shout out to Joe, not only being the new president for the Miami Hurricanes, but you guys saw just the overwhelming, satisfaction and joy from not only Joe, but from Mario and this whole team. Just goes to show you guys, right? We talk about the word family and how much it means to this program. Doesn't matter if you're a fan, if you're a player, a coach, a family member of a player, or the president of the Miami Hurricanes, right? With Joe, we are going to show you that love as long as you show us that love back. And Joe definitely has been doing that throughout the years. So big shout out to him. Now, getting into the breakdown of this Louisville-Miami game this past weekend, we'll touch on it a little bit because, as I told y'all before, we got our big-time matchup, homecoming rivalry week against FS2. Yes, it's not you anymore. It's Pooh. Until they show me otherwise, everything on that program is poo. Going to the quarterbacks, man. I mean, come on. Cam Ward, right? We talk about him each and every week. When you pull up the ACC Player of the Week or National Player of the Week, it seems like Cam Ward is on that thing every single week. And this was another big-time performance by Cam Ward. Me personally, I think this was probably one of his best games so far in a Miami Hurricane uniform. This was one that NFL scouts and people that really kind of wanted to see if Cam Ward can continue to answer, drive after drive, because this was a Louisville team going into this game that we knew was going to be a tough matchup for our defense, and it would be a potential high-scoring game, which it was just that. And just going into Cam Ward a little bit on this football game, you saw early on in that first drive, a little bit of missed key opportunities and throws. He had a key moment with Isaiah Horton on that, slant or post route, I believe, that could have definitely been a 6 touchdown for Isaiah Horton. But what I liked to see was after that first drive, the way that Cam Ward and the whole entire offense just continued to respond drive after drive, especially in the second half, which we'll get into later. But I mean, I talk about some of the NFL guys that really wanted to see what Cam Ward could do and how this would be one of those games that they would put on the tape. Let's talk about the throw across his body on first down. Or I'm sorry, not on first down. It was the first quarter, I believe. They were down 7-3, and in the back of the end zone to Jacoby George, I mean, across his body. You want to talk about an NFL Sunday throw, man. He made that look effortless, and it was perfect, right on the money. Jacoby George even got 2 feet in, so that would have been a touchdown even on Sundays as well with the perfect Sunday throw. So, I mean, that was just one of many opportunities that Cam Ward really just showed out and made great decisions. I think in past games, there were a lot of opportunities that either were bad decisions on Cam Ward or he just didn't take the check down or those easy opportunities to kind of move the chains. You saw in this game, third downs especially, right? We knew going into this football game against Louisville, our offense was number 1 in the country on third down conversions with 60%, which is unheard of as a Miami Hurricane fan, right? This is a stat and a realm that we are not used to. And not only were we first in the country at 60% going into the game, but after the game, we ended up 60% on third down conversions compared to Louisville's 3 of 12 on third down conversions, which is a huge telling stat into this football game that, the defense has really helped us out at times. I know the defense was definitely a concern. We'll get into that side of the football shortly. But between the third down conversions that we excelled on the offensive side of the ball, I want to talk about the 7 carries that Cam Ward had rushing the football. We'll get into the rushing game and some of the running backs who really showed out. But I want to say this. Do not overlook the 7 carries for 29 yards that Cam Ward had in this football game, because a lot of those runs were in big plays to move the sticks and big-time opportunities where we needed that first down and gut-wrenching drives to really make sure we answered and capitalized off the Louisville's offense late in the football game. So shout out again to Cam Ward for really having those key driving moments of understanding when to tuck it in and run. Those were things in the past games that he did not do. So I really love that he's starting to learn from the little mistakes that he was having before. And those were the little things that really helped us get the W in this football game, along with other things. Now let's get to the running backs, right? Running back room. I mean, I think this was the first game, folks, that not only did we have a complete running game by committee, but it seemed like the rotation of how we started and finished this game. I want to see this rotation moving forward. I know Jamie Martinez was getting a lot of knock in games prior. He was obviously the starting running back almost each and every game, starting off the first couple drives, and then you saw Fletcher, Allen, and Lyle and et cetera kind of do the rotation. And what we saw in games previous was Jamie Martinez was getting you those 2 to 3 yards, right? Moving the chains on first down early on in the game. But it was Fletcher that was really giving you those 7 to 9 yards, those big plays, to really going from a 1st and 10 to, a 2nd and 7 to now a 1st and 10 right off the bat, because Mark Fletcher was just moving those chains, right? I think what you saw in this game, they made some adjustments. They started out right out the gate with Mark Fletcher, who was running extremely hard, doing what he's been doing all year in a Miami Hurricane uniform. You saw Mark Fletcher started off. Then we had a change of pace with A.J. Allen, which I really thought Coach Merritt, shout out to him, he really improvised and really used A.J. Allen in key moments to really pick up the pace and change the dynamic of things late in that second and third quarter. And then what you saw in that late third quarter all the way to finish the game off in that fourth quarter, Damian Martinez, those 2 to 3 yards that you were seeing in games previous, those 2 to 3 yards were now going to be 2 to 3 yards before contact, and you saw after contact. Marshawn Lynch, I tweeted you out. I know you've been seeing Cam Ward in a Hurricane uniform, but you got to go look at Damian Martinez, because what he did this last game reminded me a lot of beast mode at the Seattle Seahawks. And just after contact, what Damian Martinez was able to do and just extend runs, play after play, drive after drive, late in the third and fourth quarter, really just go to show you the momentum, how powerful this young man is, and just using him late in football games instead of early on really paid dividends going into this football game, and really helped you establish that run late at the end and continue to pound and throw the football, which credit to the offensive line, which we'll get to in a second. Now, getting to the wide receivers, folks, look, we said before the season, you got to pick your poison. You got Xavier Restrepo. You got Isaiah Horton that was going to come off to have a big year this year, right? You were getting a Sam Brown from Houston out of the transfer portal that wanted to ball out after having 800 yards the previous year. And then you had Jacoby George that just went under 1,000 yards last year, and he was a guy that was extremely hungry to continue to ball out and this be his money year after he goes to the NFL. Well, guess what? Each and every game, we saw one guy, maybe two, be that it factor. Well, in today and this past weekend's game against Louisville, what you saw was all of these guys played a part into it. Sam Brown, let's just start off with Sam Brown. The electric big plays that Sam Brown made for not only this Hurricane team, but I mean, the effortless pass by Cam Ward up the middle with a wide open Sam Brown. I believe he only had 3 or 4 receptions, but over 100 and something yards with a touchdown. Those are the things that you want to see with Sam Brown. He is a big playmaker guy, similar to how we used Jacoby George last year, of a lot of, yards after catch, of really what helps a guy like Sam Brown. These are the opportunities of when he's getting the ball while moving on the run. That is what you like to see in how you use Sam Brown. So shout out to Sam Brown. And come on, Xavier Restrepo, the X-Man, the X Factor, your quarterback's best friend, the defense's worst nightmare, right? Well, you could go on and on with all the nicknames that you can give Xavier Restrepo, but X just continued to be X. You saw early on in the game, it seemed like Louisville game plan and bracketed him to where he didn't get too many opportunities early on, but you saw the later it got in the game, when it was crunch time, when you needed those catches, when you needed those first downs, there's no other guy to go to but Xavier Restrepo, right? And he just continued to do what he does best, playmaking, having the nice touchdown, and, of course, having over 100 yards once again. Shout out to X. And he did it all on his dad's birthday over the weekend. Shout out to Jamie Restrepo. Hope you had a great birthday, man. And like I mentioned before, all 4 wide receivers, Isaiah Horton, Jacoby George, Xavier Restrepo, and Sam Brown, all had a touchdown in this past weekend's game. So shout out to the wide receiver group as a whole. You guys continue to do your thing. Now, offensive line, folks, I know there's been a lot of, skeptical things out there. Hey, our offensive line's been a little shaky, hasn't been the best on the running game, hasn't been the best passing game. We're waiting for Jalen Rivers to come back. Well, we got Jalen Rivers back, fully healthy, but what you saw was diversity. What you saw was the competition that we've been using, the cross-training we've been using all offseason is starting to pay dividends. So shout out to Alex Mirabal, Coach Cristobal, Coach Ed Pata, and the rest of the offensive line group that are doing work for these young men, and all the young men in the offensive line group that are putting in the work, putting in the time. And you saw with Jalen Rivers coming back, not only could you use him at tackle, but you saw a shift where he moved into guard at times, and you had Markel Bell still getting the opportunity and the starting reps that he deserved because he's been developing and he has been progressing each and every week. And you saw with those two in the lineup, they did not skip a beat. folks. I don't know about you guys. We could say something about the defense, but I'll tell you what, this offensive line group as a whole, this could have been one of their best performances, I think, so far this year. Maybe going back to the Florida game. But when you look at it, folks, it was a high-scoring game. But when we needed points, when we needed to run, when we needed to pass, the offensive line was not an issue, folks. We wanted to run the ball, we could run the ball. You want to pass the ball, we could pass the ball. Cam Ward had plenty of time back there. He had a few 1-800-collect calls while he was scanning the field, making the runs, making the pass. But all in all, pass and run offensive line group was not an issue. Zach Carpenter played a heck of a game in front of his father for the first time in 4 or 5 years. So shout out to the Carpenter family as well. And, of course, Francis Manoa, man, just doing what he does best. And like I said, offensive line group as a whole, this is probably one of their best performances. So shout out to the O-line group. Now, before we get into the defensive side of the football, let me say this, right? When you look at the first half of this football game, right, into the first half and prior games, especially the last couple games where we're playing from behind, it's that first half where we are down, right? Because we have gone to show people that we are a second half football team, specifically in the fourth quarter with the adjustments that we make on the defense. And then, of course, our offense just continuously stepping it up in third and fourth quarter and answering the bells, right? Well, what you saw in this game was a little bit different shift, right? This was a Louisville team that we knew was going to go try to score every single possession, right? And what you saw at the end of the first half was Miami was up 24-17. Let's not forget this. We were up 24-17 going into the first half, and we were getting the ball back in that second half. What I saw with this team was a little bit interesting. And I want to talk about this, right? Because I think a lot of these little things get overlooked because it just happens so quickly in the football game. Up 24-17 into the first half. You go into the second half getting the ball, and you actually score right off the bat. 31-17. Touchdown, nice touchdown pass to Xavier Restrepo. Now you're up 31-17 first drive after the second half. Well, guess what? In prior games, this is where our defense get the clamps out. They start to make the adjustments. The offense of the opposing team starts to slow down dramatically. And then our offense just continues to answer, whether it's 3 points or 7 points. We move the ball and we get points, right? Well, this happened a little bit differently, folks. We were up 31-17, and 1 minute and 7 seconds later, after going up 31-17, you saw a lot of quick things change. You had a kickoff return touchdown by Lacey of Louisville. Again, one of the many playmakers that our defense should have been scheming for and understanding that this is one of the many guys that you need to circle and watch out for, which was a little bit of concern in my opinion, because all the guys that you should have circled as impact players going into this football game, those were the guys that were a thorn in this Miami Hurricanes defense and showed out and performed well. So like I said before, 1 minute and 7 seconds later, you had the kickoff return touchdown by Lacey. Next drive by Miami, Mark Fletcher fumbles the football. Well, guess what? That fumble leads to a touchdown, and now it's 31-31 just like that within 2 to 3 minutes of the football game. You blow a 2-touchdown lead, and now it's a whole new ball game, right? Well, at this point, we're right now back into what we were used to in the first halves of football games, right? We are now playing where we're playing from behind and almost to where the offense is going to have to respond and score every single drive in hopes that the defense could start to make a stop. Well, what you saw was the defense wasn't making stops, but our offense from that point moving forward, boy, did they answer. Cam Ward answered. Running back room answered. Wide receiver room answered. You know, key blocks by some of the tight ends and Elijah Lofton and others, right? Everybody played their part. And like I said, going back to the offensive line, how great they played as a whole, everyone played a part on that offensive group from that point moving forward and really answered the call each and every time that we needed. And, of course, thankfully, you saw at the end of that football game, we got the W. Now, moving on to the defense. This was obviously the big concern going into this football game. We all knew that Louisville was going to be a high, potent offense. You had the Braun brothers at head coach and coordinator that you knew was going to throw all the bells and whistles at you in this big-time matchup. And guess what? They did just that. And unfortunately, you guys can blame it on Lance Guidry if you want. You can blame it on the scheme. You can blame it on the players. A little bit of everything, right? But in my opinion, I actually do believe when you go back and look at this football game, when you break it all down, the scheme wasn't an issue, folks. Maybe at times, maybe in scenarios, you didn't want to have certain guys out there in certain positions where you knew that the offense was going to be throwing the football. We'll get into that in a minute. But the scheme wasn't the issue. I thought once again, this was another week where fundamentals, communication, eye discipline, the little things that you get taught all since Pop Warner, the little things that you can, fix, were the things once again that really hurt this Miami team, right? Some of the missed assignments that I want to talk about was first and foremost, the kickoff return, like I mentioned before. You got to know against a Louisville team like this is a dynamic team that I don't know if it was on Andy or if it was on our special teams guy, but you got to kick every ball out the end zone, right? You cannot give this team any hope or any aspiration of getting their dynamic players in space or the opportunity to create a big play. And we did just that. And not only that big play, but there was also another big play and a big moment in the football game that also changed things, right? The fake punt, which again, me and a lot of others said going into this game, Jeff and Brian Brom, they are going to have tricks up their sleeves. And we knew Mario said it in the interview with Joe Rose this morning that this was something that they practiced all week, the fake punt. And yet again, they saw the fake punt. They called a timeout, had opportunities and time to get these guys in the right opportunity, in the right spot. And we still missed the assignment and still let these guys get a fake punt and convert a first down on us. Those were two big issues alone that I think the scheme wasn't an issue. It was more of these guys need to buckle down and play their assignments right, because these were two opportunities that I believe this staff and this team practiced for throughout the week. But besides these two special team plays that I just brought up, I also thought that going back to some of the schemes and players in particular, got to be honest, folks, Kiko Manoa this season, him in the passing coverage especially has just been a liability in my opinion. I don't know what it is with playing in the zone, but him and others just get lost in the sauce. And I think he's a guy that is a more of instant react. He just needs to play it off reaction and quick pace. I would like to see someone like Popo or Jalen Alderman play more reps when it comes to key passing downs and situations, knowing when the opponent is going to have to pass on third down. I want to see Kiko more on the first and second downs, where it's more of a quick reaction, and it's more of a running concept. Just because, like I said before, I just think the coverage blitz and him just don't get along this season. And I do think, again, going back to Lance Guidry, there were some missed opportunities. I do think when you go back and you look at this football game, third down conversions, like I mentioned before, Louisville was only 3 of 12, which was awesome for our defense. But a lot of those times, you got to continue to blitz. I think we need to do a better job of obvious downs where it's 8 plus yards on third downs, or even on second downs. Blitz, blitz, blitz. We're starting to see that our secondary and our linebackers in coverage are starting to be an issue, especially when you got a quarterback and wide receivers who are playmakers that can, blow the top off of a defense or play in space. We got to give these guys as small reaction time as possible, right? The lesser time that the quarterback has to scan the field, it helps our secondary and our linebackers in coverage. So the more you can blitz, I know it's going to be obvious, but guys, this is why our defensive line, this is why we brought all these monsters together, right? If you blitz all these guys, you can't stop them all. I don't care if it's coming. You're still only going to have 2 or 3 yards to get the ball off. I would rather have 2 to 3 guys at one guy and try to get a hat on the ball than to be playing in space, because that's when the big plays really start to hurt us. Because when you really look at this defense, our defense is still a top 30 defense in the country. It's just the big plays that are really hurting us. And that just goes back to the secondary giving too much big plays up, right? But other than that, you got the missed assignments, like I talked about before. I will say the new formations that you saw on the offensive side of the ball were pretty cool as well. You had the 2 tight ends in the backfield that helped us on running and passing downs. You had the double stack wide receiver sets on the offensive side of the ball. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, Markel Bell and Jalen Rivers both playing on the offensive line together. Those were great. And, we don't really need to talk about the missed penalties each and every week. People talk about the missed penalties going our way for Miami, but we can do the same thing for us as well, whether it was the Tyler Barron hold, the miss hold on the kick return, like I mentioned before, which was a big play, and then the tight end pick on Kiko in the red zone that ended up being a touchdown as well. You could go back and look at those pictures on social media that people pulled up. Those were huge missed opportunities. But, hey, all in all, we kind of broke down the Louisville matchup against our Miami Hurricanes, 52-45. Like I said, big-time victory, big-time dub. We are, again, undefeated, one of the few undefeated teams left in college football. And when you really look at the rankings, hey, we are still number 6 in the nation. Who really cares? As long as you keep winning, we will get to the promised land. We will get to Charlotte. We will hopefully get to the college football playoffs. Just like the staff, just like the players, just win each and every week. You got to treat it 1-0, and that's exactly what this Miami team is going to have to continue to do against a rival team of FSPU this upcoming weekend. Even though they are one of the worst teams in the country, you got to be able to be on your P's and Q's because this is a rivalry game, and these are kids that have been playing together since Pop Warner football. So there's going to be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears going into this game. Now, before we talk a little bit about this FSU matchup, I mentioned the rankings of being number 6 in the nation. We currently have the 3rd best chance of making the college football playoffs at 86% out of all the teams in the country, only behind Georgia and Oregon at 87%. So kudos to this football program continually to treat this 1-0 thing on a week in and week out basis, blocking out all the media noise and just doing work and getting the dub. And we also have the 2nd highest strength of schedule out of all the remaining unbeaten teams so far at 42nd in the nation, just behind Oregon, who's at 39th. So just giving you Hurricane fans and all the other college football haters out there a nice little stat for you for all the, chatter of saying, hey, Miami doesn't play anybody. Well, guess what? You put them against all the other teams in the country and all the unbeaten teams in the country remaining at that point. We're right up there with the best of the best. So just one little thing that you could kind of put the pad on our backs, and this team continuously to prove each and every week. Now, this FSPU rivalry weekend, right? It is Monday. We got a busy week up ahead for us. Like I said, today we broke down the Louisville win, talk a little bit about FSU as well. But tomorrow we will be doing our live podcast with me, Brett, Cliff, Mondo, and the gang. We'll, of course, break down the Louisville matchup as well there and talk about FSPU. Then on Wednesday, we will be chatting it up with our guy, Pete the Greek, who is a big-time FSU booster. Anybody on social media who follows him, he is not only heavily involved in the Florida State football program, but whether it's basketball, baseball, track and field, soccer, you name it, he knows all the ins and outs of this program. So I can't wait to talk about the matchup between Miami and Florida State with him on Wednesday with you Miami Hurricane fans. I wanted to pick him in particular out to break down this matchup just because when you really look at the Florida State media guys, they're pretty similar to the Florida media guys. It's all bias. It's nothing but fluff. You saw what all these lies that they were telling before the season, all these preseason accolades that they were throwing out, all these, videos that they were pulling up of high school film or the 1 or 2 snaps they were getting at Georgia or other programs like Alabama. We all knew going into this football season, those guys weren't going to be difference makers. And sure enough, there isn't too many difference makers on this team. So it was nothing but lies. So why am I going to get a Florida State media guy on here to give you nothing but more lies? I'd rather give you someone who always keeps it 100, and Pete the Greek does just that. So I can't wait to talk about the Florida State-Miami matchup with Pete. And going into this FSU weekend, I want people to remember this. Pack the rock. Pack the rock. You're going to see players on social media say it all week. You're going to see the staff members say it all week. You're going to see the fans. You're going to see it all over social media. We need to pack the rock. Not only because this team is undefeated, not only because when we play away, we sell out every single time we travel, right? Not only because this is a rival team of Florida State that anytime Miami and Florida State play, we should be packing out the stadium. But the biggest reason why we need to pack the rock is because in 2022, folks, I was there. My guy, John Michaels, was there. And many of you other Cane fans was there. The last time these two teams played at the Hard Rock, we got embarrassed. When I mean embarrassed, I mean I drove 5 hours to go to this football game, tailgate, drink, eat, sat in the stands, and me and John Michaels left in the middle of the second quarter and left that football game. A complete, utter show embarrassment. And not only did we lose, but we got mollywopped 45-3 at home in front of our fans. The Florida State Seminoles came in here and embarrassed us. And let me tell you something. There was a quote by Mario Cristobal back in that 2022 matchup after the football game of how did it feel to lose 45-3 to your rival of Florida State when usually these games are very close. And you know what he said? He said, end quote, "I don't care about that stuff. It's their job to score, and it's our job to stop them. One day, we'll switch those shoes." Remember that. One day, we will switch those shoes. That was 2 years ago, folks. Well, guess what? Not only are the shoes switched, but we got the loafers stepping each and every single week. We got Cam Ward, Heisman candidate, Heisman front runner. We got the weapons. We got the offensive line. And I tell you what, Florida State, not only do they have the fan base that I doubt will travel for this football game, they may not have some of the players even be locked into this game. They may be flying to other, places on islands like they were doing it in past weeks. But they don't even have a quarterback that understands the caliber of what he's about to walk into this upcoming weekend, right? Whether it's Brock, whether it's Luke, I pray for you, kid, because what you're about to walk into Saturday night, packing the rock, is going to be something you are not ready for. And we need to make sure that the same way they blew us out in 2022, 45-3, we give them back that same medicine. Because with a guy like Cam Ward, with the weapons we got, and with the way this defense has been playing the last few weeks, this is a perfect opportunity for us to click on all three cylinders and to really get this train back rolling to where it needs to be from the beginning of the season. And I think between Florida State and Duke, and even a Georgia Tech with possible Haynes King, these will be three big-time games that I think our defense alone can kind of rejuvenate themselves while the offense continues to hum. And I do want to mention this. This is a Florida State team that just faced Duke and lost. A Florida State team that has never lost to Duke in the history of the program and finally just lost this past weekend, right? This is a Florida State team that faced a Duke quarterback that beat them with less than 80 passing yards. We have a quarterback that you close your eyes, you take a sip of water, and he's got 90 yards in one drive. So I'm telling you right now, I understand this is a rival game. I understand that whatever happened in prior weeks gets thrown out the window. I'm telling you right now, folks, this better be a blowout. This better not be a close game. We better drop 50 to 60 points on these folks. And our defense better buckle down and finally not have big plays. Because if there's a team out there right now that doesn't know how to create big plays or score points, it's the Florida State Seminoles, folks. This is a team that has only averaged 16 points or less every single game this season, except the first game in Ireland, which they only had 21 points and another loss. So this is not an offensive potent team. This is not a playmaking team at all. So we better come to play, treat this like another game, which I believe we will, 1-0 each and every week. But like I said before, the hashtag does not change. Make sure you pack the rock this Saturday night at the Hard Rock Stadium. Now, before we get out of here, like I mentioned before, this is the CanesWear Daily Live Podcast. I am your host, Brad Tejeda. And before we get out of here, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I let you guys know the schedule and the docket that we have for you guys for the rest of the week. So make sure you are subscribed to get those alerts. We'll be coming at you full force this whole week, whether it's Pete, whether it's Steve Kim that we'll have on during the week, or whether it's me, Mondo, Cliff, Brett, and the gang. We will be here all week during rivalry week. But you know what else will be here all week? Every single day, whether you're in Miami, whether you're in Fort Lauderdale, Davie, or across the country. What we will be doing is we will be going to CanesWear.com, right? The best one-stop shop for all your CanesWear and Florida sports apparel needs. Only at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. And this weekend, like I said before, is rivalry week against FS2. We thought it was going to be a blackout. Turns out it's going to be an orange out. And one of the newest items that CanesWear just got in is this 47 brand vintage retro Region Foam trucker hat for $34.99. They even got the t-shirt as well in orange to match. This is one of my favorite products right now that they got in. So please make sure you not only get your hats that you need, they got all different kinds of stuff, folks. They got the new orange faded Digi Sebastian 2024 Adidas print as well if you need an orange out t-shirt. And like I mentioned before, they got your all orange tonal Adidas color Premier football jerseys as well, which is one of the nicest jerseys that have been made in quite a while. They got that. And for all the women's and kids as well, they got hats, they got jerseys. You know, they got the new Cam Ward jerseys as well. I got one for being the kiddos. And of course, Florida Panthers, Miami Marlins, Enter Miami, and the Miami Dolphins. They got it all, folks. So please make sure you stop at the CanesWear, Miami Fanwear, the best store in all of America for all your Miami Hurricanes and Florida sports apparel. And that's it, folks. I am your host, Brad Tejeda, with another CanesWear Daily Podcast episode. We will see you again tomorrow night. Me, Brett, Cliff, Mondo, and the gang. Please don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button.